Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another On Air with Intentional Guy. I'm really excited today because I'm here with Dr. Ray and Jean, and I would try to say their last name, but he said I could just say Dr. Ray and Jean. So that's, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's pronounced Kadkhodaian.
Kadkhodaian. Okay. See, I can actually do that, but sometimes I have a hard enough time with my last name, Chestnut. So just please forgive me. I'm just terrible with names. I'm excited to have you guys on here because they are marriage counselors, couples counselors, correct?
Yes.
And I've been looking at a lot of your episodes and things like that, and the importance that I saw of bringing you folks on our show is a lot of times I'm not going to pick on anyone. I'll pick on myself. For the longest time, I was not cognizant of my relationship. I took it for granted, and until we had a really bad accident that happened to us, we had a semi truck, tanker truck fell over the top of us, crushed our car about 2 years ago. I would say it was during Hurricane Sally, and it was a nightmare. And during that time period, I went through some counseling. And one thing that I found, and I heard this in one of your things, is I really couldn't be anybody from my wife because I didn't understand myself, let alone, I didn't even know myself, let alone how am I going to know her. And, I think a lot of people, it cracks me up, younger people who get married because they think that's going to be the redemption to everything, and how they don't see the work and the real struggles, because relationships are messy. Can be messy, and but one of the things that I have learned in the last couple of years is what I have in my wife and how much I enjoy who she is, and so now I'm learning more of an intentionality towards her, and making sure what we speak. I tease people a lot. I'm a jokester, and I realized that when I was joking, that a lot of times it was in crowds with other people, and it was kind of not edifying to my wife, right? Didn't mean nothing by it. But now I'm learning that the words I say and what I do really mean something. But I wanted to just ask you guys a couple questions today and have you take a conversation with us in the counseling field. What would you say that you guys deal with the most with couples in your field?
Well, I would say the number one complaint that couples come to us with is that we have a communication problem. But it's such a generalized, statement, because it's very unique to each couple as far as where the communication breakdown is. And what you're talking about, what we talked about in our podcast is that if you are disconnected from yourself and you don't know who you truly are, there's no possible way that you can merge in a committed partnership and create what the ultimate connection is.
Correct.
If you were walking down the street and you saw a stranger, could you go have an in-depth conversation with that person? You don't know them at all. And many couples are spending zero time together. They're not investing at all in their relationship. And so how could they have communication? They don't even know each other. And we're so distracted in our world, we don't know ourselves. And we're evolutionary people. We are constantly changing and growing and becoming based on all of our life experiences. And, when I was a kid, on Sunday, all the stores were closed. You had space. And today, you got 24 hours something coming at you. You never even stop to process it. It's just constant flood of things. And our brain likes the path of least resistance. So whatever's moving, we're going to look at. and we're going to not pay attention to something sitting. And technology is much faster than
Yes.
the human speed. And it takes intentional work to pay attention to your relationship, to yourself, to your health, to all those things. And the distraction is really, really tough. And people say, I don't have any time. I said, well, look at your phone. How many hours did you spend on your phone today?
Right.
You have time.
Well, was a big distraction in our life. Was you go to dinner and we would spend more time. We're sitting across from each other, not even talking. We're into our phones, and we've made a rule now that we put that phone down at dinner time, so that we can enjoy each other, because we're engaged. You are engaged in something. You get to choose what you're engaged in. And I like that point, because you just look around, and I think one of the biggest issues I see a lot of times are people, you said it best, there's a lot of distractions today, technology and everything. I mean, people will spend hours on TikTok and a few moments with their family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's very easy to take your relationship for granted. It's very easy to allow those distractions to pull you in. That's what the phone is designed to do. That's what all these apps are designed to do, is to keep your attention, because your attention has become currency in our world today.
Yes.
The majority of couples are spending their attention elsewhere, and they're not spending that in their relationship.
And technology gets better and better at doing it. Like we got, I don't know how long it's been since I got this new phone, maybe a year. But I notice every time I put it down, it goes, eek. And it's not doing anything. It's just, it knows it was put down. And, if your child was doing that to you and you're just going, Dad, 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 you would be so annoyed. But as soon as you don't give your phone attention, you feel like you want to have a temper tantrum as a little kid. Like, I want my phone back. It was distracting me. It was lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, from a biological perspective, neurological perspective, there are bonding hormones that we need to feel and continue to excite within our marriage. And most often, couples are waking up and the first thing they touch in the morning is their phone. And they have a great excuse to use their phone as an alarm clock, right? But the first thing you do is, once you turn the alarm clock off, you are inundated with all of the messages and the world and everything. And so now you're bonding with the world. You're bonding with everything outside of your bedroom and your marriage, instead of bonding with your partner.
And you get this belief that everything should just show up for you and be comfortable and be about you and give to you. And that's exactly opposite of everything that creates a great relationship.
Yeah. And I liked something that I saw on I watch so many of your podcasts now that they're bleeding together, but I know that one of the things that you ask when you're going to have someone in counseling is that they make a commitment to this. And I think that's a big issue, is we are not committed to one another, and we are so, like you said, the phone is a great instance, because when I was growing up, we didn't have that. And today, like you said, it is designed for our attention and for us to, and we are on that more than we are anything else. I'd like to discuss with you guys how, because one of the feedback that I get from a lot of people out there is struggling relationships, struggling marriage. And I think you hit it right. I think some of a lot of it's probably dealt with communication and things like that. But I'm a process guy, and I know what I've done to make my marriage work, but I know that doesn't work for everybody else, but was setting aside some times and being intentional in it. Are there some practical ways that we can address people to do that? Because I guess one is, first, let's talk about the commitment, because let's be honest, not everybody listening to us right now are really committed to their relationship. So how do you talk someone can you talk someone into being committed into that relationship?
I think that Disney did us a really great disservice, when they first came out with these fairy tale stories that once they got married, they lived happily ever after. And that is just not the case. When you make a commitment on your wedding day, you're making a commitment to wake up every single day and work on your marriage. It's not happily ever after, because you are supposed to evolve. You're supposed to grow together. And, when it comes to working on a relationship, it's kind of two-pronged. There is the investment piece where you have to feed the relationship, right?
Right.
Caring and feeding of a relationship. But then there's also the other prong of the work, and that is healing. And a marriage is designed for both people to heal each other, to learn how to heal past wounds that they came into the relationship with, and to evolve into something greater than themselves.
No.
And if we're distracted, we cannot help our partner become a better version of themselves, because we're not allowing ourselves to do that. And if you wanted to go to a personal trainer and work on your health, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to take this snapshot of where you're at. And they're going to say, okay, if you keep doing what you're doing, in 3 years, you're probably going to start seeing some diabetes, or you're going to see some heart problems. And they're going to tell you where you're headed, right? And with human beings, when we are in a committed relationship that we're invested in and feel safe in on a regular basis, it reduces anxiety, it reduces depression. And you see, that's like epidemic anxiety and depression is, they say the average person has as much anxiety today as a psychiatric patient in 1970.
Wow.
And we're not touching each other, and we're not talking to each other. We're not seeing each other. And so one of the first things that we ask a couple to do is to start investing in their relationship by doing something new and exciting together. Because those two things the newness disrupts this dull pattern that they have, and they're asleep in their relationship. That's why you say, how do you wake someone up and convince them that it might be a good idea for them to work on the relationship? They don't even know they're asleep. And when you do something exciting and you add that emotion in, because what happens is in our brains, we're designed to look for negative things fast, right? And so you have to respond to a potential problem quicker than smell a pretty flower. And everything about healthy relationships is the pretty flower. And so couples will see all the contempt very fast. You're annoying to me, or you ignore me, or you this, or you that. They all sound like that when they first come in. And they never say I. It is so hard for us to see ourselves and to see what is my contribution to this. And because we see out, we don't see in unless we have a reflection. We don't even know we've hurt our partner. We don't know we are doing things that aren't healthy. We have no reflection. And your partner is your closest reflection. But if you're both distracted, then you don't have to deal with those things. And when couples haven't made those deposits into the relationship, and then they try to spend some time together, all they're going to do is fight. And it's the same fight, and it feels bad. And we don't want people to feel bad. That's why go do something new and exciting. Wait for the problems later. We'll teach you that later. But right now, go be friends.
Yes. And I think you hit it. A lot of people they're asleep. They don't realize this until the bags are packed and someone's walking out the door, and then it's too late to start doing it, because all of our attention has been, everywhere else. And I love the fact that you said, let's start something new, because that's what happened with us was doing something different. And you said something else that I really love. How do we see the other person? And I realized that the other day, it made me feel, I think it's nice to feel good when you can see how much value you have in this relationship and the value with the other person. That's where I'm at with my wife, because normally I would be asleep at the wheel. I was one of those husbands, okay? And in the last 2 years, we've really been working on it, and I've seen a lot of growth in myself. And one of the things was like my wife does for everybody in the family. Husbands, it's so easy to give that ring to the wife, and she can run the household blindfolded, right? And my wife called me the other day, and I was talking to her, and I could tell in her voice it just wasn't a good day. And I was like, well, what's going on? Well, she went to Starbucks, and she got the wrong coffee. Another person named Amber. So she got a coffee she didn't realize that until she got to work. And she realized she only had one sock on. And she said to me, and I just remember it was her tone, but she said to me, I guess I'm just destined to have a bad day today. Mm. And and for the first time, I felt like I was awake in my relationship, because that hurt my spirit when she said that. I pulled into Dollar General, picked up some no-sew socks for her. I got a gift bag, put the socks in there with a card, and I went to Starbucks. My wife has a special drink she wants, so I figured out how to hack into her app and get the right drink for her. And I took it to her at work, and the card said, you deserve to never have a bad day. And that took me hardly nothing to do. Mm-hmm. And that little act, the love that I saw in her eyes back at me over that was amazing. Mm-hmm. But I think it's because I saw my wife, and she knew that you saw me and you valued me. And it's those small things like that. And I rejoice in that for myself, because I don't know, I wasn't always that guy, and I like being that guy. But it takes getting outside of yourself. And when I'm talking to other people, I don't know how you guys do it. Try to get other people to say, you got to look past your own nose for a minute. You are too self-involved in yourself. But then again, is it because they have a lot of unresolved trauma or other things in their life that's why they can't look past it? I don't know, but I love what you said, I think we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. And if we can't be seen and heard by our significant other, then you have to ask someone's going to ask the question in that relationship, so why are we together?
You said something that we hear a lot, right? It's the little things, right? Most couples, the last question we ask couples that we're interviewing on our podcast is, what is it that your partner does that they love you? And they all say something like a cup of coffee in the morning or something. And the same thing is true on the other side. It is also that easy to turn someone's day into a bad day.
Yeah.
And carelessly and unintentionally, and we don't know we've done it. And so, you talk about trauma, and those are such big buzzwords today. And human beings are designed to go through trauma. Human beings are designed to grow through trauma, which is why you just put a picture up of a huge trauma you went through. And you didn't say, well, now for the rest of my life, I'm going to go sit in the corner and stop living because I went through this thing.
Yeah.
And I like to tell this story, and I think your listeners will really like this story because you probably know the story. It's about this guy, and he's got 12 friends. And one of his friends goes and betrays him in the worst way possible. And then the rest of his friends deny that they know him. And then everyone around him starts telling lies about him. And he says, I'm not even going to defend myself. I can't, there's nothing I can do here. And they take those lies and they judge him. And they beat him within an inch of his life. And then they say, oh, we're not happy yet. Let's strip you, humiliate you, and parade you through the streets and spit on you. And he falls down and he gets back up. And he keeps going and he falls down again and he gets back up. And the third time he falls down, someone out of nowhere helps him up. And when he gets all the way to where he's going, he says two things. One, forgive them, they know not what they do. And two, follow me. He says life's hard. He says you got to get up again. You got to keep going, because if you can, no matter what anyone else on this planet is doing to you. He could have just had a big palace and said, why doesn't everyone come here? We'll all eat and live happily ever after. He doesn't do that. He says it's hard. You're going to be tempted. There's a thing in this world that is going to want you to go in a different direction. If you don't lose your soul, you win. That's all. That's the whole gist of it. Love each other and have integrity and stay true to yourself.
I love that. I love that. And you're right, because I think if anything to be out of this podcast that we can that we can bring out to people is to be ever present in your marriage today. Look across at the table at the person that you're married to, and not let those worst moments in your life, first off, define who you are, but also don't let the worst moments in your guys' relationship define your relationship either. I've learned that we're not the sum of our worst moments. We get to create new things with each other. And we're doing that. We're living our best life right now because our mindset has changed, that we're in this for each other. And it's almost like a contest now, who can do what more for the other person. Because I love to see my wife smile. I love to see her joy. I love to, because she's a good person. And we have to come back. I wonder sometimes, and this is probably horrible of me, so don't judge me, but sometimes I look at couples and I'm like, why are they even together? Do they even like each other? And we were probably that couple too.
That's a great question, Michael. It actually is a fantastic question, because we've often said that every marriage ends. We just don't know when or how. Even if a couple's together for 50, 60 years, at some point, someone is leaving naturally from this world and the marriage is ending. And so if the goal isn't for marriage to be forever, then what is the goal? Right? The goal is to learn about ourselves, to learn about our partner, to learn about this relationship that is the closest that we could have to another human being on this planet. Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. That is the potential, right? Because ultimately, we go through life alone. We go through our experience in our own self. And if we don't have a witness to our life, then we don't have someone to share that with. And our partner is the closest person that could be a witness to our experience here on this planet.
And it should be that way.
Yeah, the idea of, do these people even like each other? And it really talks to this, where in your life is the energy just so dull and bland and not motivating and not exciting and not passionate? And when you talk about going through life alone, because we have to separate from source to get in these bodies. And so here we are, and no one can ever know what we think, what we feel. And when you're on your phone, you think you're interacting with something, but you're not. Nothing's there. No one's there. But it feels like it is. And no one knows. I don't know what he's got going on in that world and in his head. He doesn't know what I have in my world, in my head. And so that distraction, it dulls us. And as human beings, we're designed in two ways. One is, if I don't like something that's happening, what is the problem outside and what is the problem inside? And most couples, they don't want to know what the problem is inside. So whether they like their partner or not, they're probably thinking, I'm probably doing something, so I don't want to have that conversation. Or if I don't like what they're doing, they're going to be defensive and angry if I talk about it. So what's the use? And they get very dull. And this idea of having chaos and conflict in relationship to us is, we call that fertilizer. And what is fertilizer made of?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
if you don't process that stuff in your life that's uncomfortable, then you're just sitting there and it stinks.
Yep. Well, and I liked one of the episodes. I can't talk about all your episodes, but one of your episodes I like where you guys utilize the iceberg method a lot about, how, what is it, 85% is actually underwater of what you see, but of what you're dealing with, but what you see on top is only the other percentage. And that's so true in relationships. And I think for me, that's what kept me isolated and in fear of moving forward, because no one knows me better than my spouse, right? And so there's a lot of fears in there. But I think counseling was so detrimental for me. It was not detrimental. It was so important for me. And I think I see so many, especially men, but people they see going to a counselor, marriage counselor, as a failure. And that's such a wrong thought process. And that's something on here that I want to encourage people, because I think that's maybe one of the smartest thing you can do for your marriage if you see it. Because a lot of times people think, well, they're just going to be on his side or they're just going to be on her side. And that's not what marriage counseling is. And would you guys mind just taking a few minutes and explain what the benefit of what marriage counseling could do for someone who's listening to our show today?
So I kind of have to do a little caveat here, because we feel that marriage counseling can be very helpful, depending. And, when you think about human beings, we grew up in tribes and villages and communities. Mm-hmm. And if a young couple was struggling, who would they go to in the community? They would go to the elders. Right. And the elders would have experience in having a relationship together, and they would be able to offer that experience to the young couple, help them go through whatever challenges that they're going through, because they've had that experience. Well, our communities have become diluted. And in many ways, we don't have community anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So marriage counseling was born out of that, the disillusion of community, whereas now who do I go to? And that is what the premise of marriage counseling is that there's a person as an elder with experience is able to help guide you through the challenges that you are naturally going to go through in your relationship. However, in the field of marriage counseling, 80 to 90% of marriage counselors are female. Most of them, a lot of them, have high rates of divorce. And what happens is that 80%, 90% of marriage counseling is driven by the wife. So now, ultimately, when the couple walks into the room, there's a gender bias that's occurring.
Right.
The male is outnumbered. And the stereotype of marriage counseling is that, there is a problem, right? Because typically couples wait a minimum of 6 years before they actually seek outside help. So by that time, there's a very big problem that's going on. Mm-hmm. Now, most people don't know that marriage counseling, traditional marriage counseling right now, has the worst success rate across the board of all therapies, and actually can contribute to divorce. Okay. And so when we say that marriage counseling is beneficial, it is if you find the right therapist.
Correct.
If you find the right guidance, right?
Yes.
When we started out in the field, we were therapists like that. We were individual people that were sitting in front of a couple, and our personal experience was that felt horrible and wrong. It didn't feel effective. It didn't end the way we wanted it to. You felt like you were refereeing. We call it the Jerry Springer effect, where people are just coming in and they're just airing their stuff and they think they're right. And what we know is they're not. They're both right and they're both wrong. And then so we were like, we could do this better. And so we decided to start working with couples as a couple. And what we learned is that this is not about refereeing an issue. It's about what is the depth under there that it manifests in this way. And that's what we help people see. And we know we have never seen a relationship that wasn't a 50-50. And that means that we each have 50% responsibility for the condition of that relationship. And we're each contributing equally to what it looks like in our own ways that we're making decisions. And we don't know what we're doing. We can't see it. So we see this very developmentally. And so if your role models, your parents, role modeled a relationship to you, it was a parent-child relationship. And then you get into your relationship and you're still parent-child because that's all you know. And our goal is to help people have these mature, independent, autonomous people coming together as adult relationships in this mature way that, you know, when you saw your wife and she got the wrong coffee and she was having a bad day, you could have easily said, just get over it. Just get over it. You know, people have real problems in the world and that's nothing. And instead you saw her soul. She was hurting. And people like to stop at the anger. And anger, if you come at with someone with anger, you're going to get anger back. Yeah. But when you come at them with vulnerability, you're going to get vulnerability back. And you said something, you said, it hurt my soul to see her in pain. Yeah. And the defense of that is shut up, get over it. Now you've created a problem in my world. And instead you took that emotion and you went, oh, my person's hurting. What can I do to help her feel better? Yeah. And when we start doing that with our partner, instead of taking it personally, instead of reacting, because that's in our nature to do, right? Then we start to have a very alive and beautiful relationship that's being fed, as opposed to something that we're both killing.
Yeah.
So when we meet with couples, Jean and I'm working with the husbands and Jean is working with the wives individually. Great. And then we come together, the four of us. And now we are teaching them the skills and tools in order to be able to overcome their communication issues, right? To be able to see the 85% going on under the water in their partner. You know, to see those iceberg moments, as we say. You know, when your wife went and had a start of that bad day and didn't get the right coffee and didn't have a sock on her foot and everything, that is an iceberg moment. It is an emotion that is bringing up something from the past, right? Anytime we have an intense emotional reaction to something going on, whether it's our partner saying something or doing something or something that's happening in our environment, that is an iceberg moment. It's pulling on a very old wound. And if we're able to start seeing that in our partner, then we can help them heal it. And that is what we teach.
That's great.
One of the things that we noticed is when we're working with a couple an hour a week, they're taking this little tiny break from their life and they're going into this place of depth, soul work, and then they're going right back into their life. And it's hard for them to feel the payoff of the work for a bit, for about 5 or 6 weeks. That's kind of what we've noticed. And so we also created a home study course so that now it's not just 1 hour a week. And the home study course is done together. It's set up like date night. So during that, they're learning about themselves. They're learning about who they are, how human beings are designed, and what are things you can have in your relationship and where to look at and what conversations to have to get more depth into your relationship together, not with your therapist, but with your partner. And then we noticed that we started creating weekend intensives because now you're taking a break, a 4-day break from all of that and doing a really deep dive into having fun with your partner, zero distraction, and talking about those tough things that would ultimately lead to an argument and you stopping couples work because that doesn't feel good. But nope, let's stay in it. We're going to stay in it all the way through to the other side. And you feel that good payoff within those couple days. And that's what gets people really excited about staying in their relationships and doing the work.
Well, I really appreciate everything what you guys are saying, because I like the fact that, first off, what you said about counselors, because you're right. We have to be discerning in who we go to, because you gave the stats right there, of success rate. We want to be successful where we go. I've been to some counselors that I'm like, I don't know where we were definitely not had the same values or goal systems in place, for sure. And, but I noticed, so I've been to your website quite a bit, and you're talking about is there some things on your website, and I want to pull that up for just a minute for everybody, but is there some things on your website that this intensive training that you were talking about that they could go to, and do you do online counseling with people or seminars or things like that? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, to work with us personally, we have a coaching program called Couple to Couple, and that is where we coach people all over the world. We're working with them virtually. We do see people in person at times in our clinic in Chicagoland area. And, that is really the best way to you really tailor the work to your relationship specifically. Okay. And, from couple to couple, then we have these other programs that, Jean was talking about, like the home study course, Relationship 101. And that's something that a couple can do in their own home, right? And it's much more cost affordable. And then we have the weekend intensive, which we really love putting on these weekend intensives, because we have found, just the payoff of seeing the smiles, that couples have, that they're kind of cuddling up to each other on the couch by the end of the weekend. And, just that payoff of them. But first of all, we take away their phones. So there is absolutely no distraction. And, the venues that we find, we have a new venue for 2023 that's in the Colorado area. And this lodge is beautiful. It's nestled in the Gunnison Mountains, and there are no TVs throughout the entire lodge. We're going to be able to, do a very intense weekend for 15 couples. Wow. And, all meals are catered, and it's just a really high-end experience, but it allows you to really focus on your partner and your partner alone, and the distractions are gone. And to see couples at the end of the weekend not want to get their phones back, it's amazing.
You can see on our website the testimony of other people that have gone on the weekend. Yeah. And it's really incredible to watch them come through the door. They're afraid to turn their phones off. They're afraid of that being disconnected from the world. And, if people have situations where, maybe they have a divorce situation from a prior relationship where they have to talk to their kid at 9:00 or something, we'll bring them their phone and allow them to do that. But they have our phone number if there's a problem. So, you'll know if there's anything wrong in your world. But by the end, they come in, they're frazzled, they've been traveling. And we are very intentional about every aspect of this weekend. And so every single room has a balcony with a view. Every single room. Wow. And being in beauty is really good for our soul. And I've heard this said that if you look closer and closer and closer at something man-made, you see all the problems. When you look closer and closer at something God-made, you see the beauty. And so we're paying attention to what are they hearing when they walk in the room? What are they eating? What are they smelling? On one of our weekends, there was a woman and she had all these dietary things, and she saw the menu and she says, I can't eat anything. And we said, we're going to have the chef call you, and we're going to make sure you have meals every meal. Oh, wow. And that's the kind of detail we want them to have.
Well, you guys are making me want to take my wife and book this. Or do you still have slots that are available?
We do. We have some slots open for the first weekend, which is April 20th to the 23rd. And then the next weekend is in October.
Yeah, we haven't released those yet.
Released the dates yet on that one.
Well, the dates are there. We haven't released signing
Registration,
up for that
right.
yet. I think
Okay.
it's the 12th or something like that of October.
Something like that. Well, let me ask you. So on your website, if someone wants to do that, is that under the couple to couple? Or
No,
no,
it's
that's
actually
the weekend
under
intensive.
the weekend intensive, right.
the weekend intensive? Okay. Weekend intensive. And so they can easily go there, look at some of that and do it. And I love your website because it's very, very easy.
So that
to
purple
use
button you just passed, that's all they would have to do is click on that.
right there.
Yep.
Well, I'll have to send this to my wife because, I mean, it's all about being intentional in what we're doing. And if we can, we'll spend money on going on a cruise or doing something like that. Why not invest in a trip that would be great for our relationship? Because this is who I want to grow old with the rest of my life. This is, I want our life to naturally end, not with one another, not feeling loved and leaving.
There was a retreat that I went on when I was a teenager. It was called Kairos. And Kairos is time away with God, right? We have Chronos. We know Chronos, which is our clock time. But Kairos is those moments where time doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And you connect with yourself and you connect with God. And there's a concept that we have, we teach couples, is called the inner sanctum. And this is the most vulnerable you could be with another human being. This inner sanctum is reserved for the couple and for God. And no one else should be in that place.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to actually build that, right? So that your partner can see all of you, your insecurities, your deepest, darkest fears. And most often couples allow other things to violate the inner sanctum. They bring in outside people, right? They talk to their mother too much, right? And then their mother's actually in that inner sanctum. They have their kids as their emotional support. And so now the kid is actually in that inner sanctum. And it doesn't allow the couple to really nurture that, to build it, and to reap the benefits of that safety bubble.
And some people have never been in their own inner sanctum. They don't know the depth for themselves.
Yeah. And we also only know what we know, right? And what I've loved sitting here, I have learned so much today, just what you just said, because without knowing what that is, that's what I'm longing for. That's what me and my wife right now are longing for. And we only know what we know, right? And we know that from past experiences. I also realize why it's so important for me and my wife to get this right, because our kids, we're modeling this for our children, for our kids and their future relationships like that. So I love what you guys are building. I've really enjoyed this because you've got some great resources, great things that I think as people, as married couples, to be intentional in their lives with each other and can gear them toward. I took some of the takeaways that I have today. I always like to have some takeaways when I'm talking to people. For our listeners, is some of the things that we can do now. First off, we're going to talk about your website in a minute. We can go there, but remove the distractions. That's some of the things that we talked about today. Let's remove some of those distractions, and the phone just keeps popping up for some reason, doesn't it? I can't imagine. But it could be golf clubs for some people, right?
At work.
At work. A grandchild. We had our first grandchild. Oh my goodness! I did not know how that can, how you could love someone so much like that.
We're 5 weeks away from being grandparents.
Oh, it's the best! It's the best thing. My name is Poppy, and that's it just melts me, But I like something else she said. Let's create something new to do together. create something new to do together. And I'm not trying to sound spiritual, because I think we spiritualize way too much stuff sometimes when it's practical, easy things. But for me, one of the biggest I had a guest on, and one of the biggest fears that I had was praying with my wife. It was something I wanted to do, but I couldn't do. And it's a simple thing, right? You would think it's a simple thing.
It's vulnerable.
It's vulnerable, right? And long story, but we're doing that now together. That's one of the most intimate and one of my favorite most part of the day is, and it's because it's something we're doing together. Yes, it's spiritual. It's great. We're connecting with God and together, and I think that goes along with what you were saying. I'm realizing there's something. I always thought I couldn't be the spiritual leader in my family because this woman knows me better, and the enemy lies in our head, right? But also it doesn't stop there. There's other things that we need to do. And I love that because we always need to be creating some new experiences together, some new moments together, creating new memories, I guess you could call it, with one another. But that keeps things fresh and exciting and going. Another was focusing on that other person. I love the fact that me and my wife see each other now. I love that. We've been married 15 years and we haven't always seen each other. And it's funny. I've had some people say, "Man, I want a marriage like yours." Well, I don't know. Getting to where we were, we have a good marriage. We are living our best life at the moment, but I want to protect it so bad because we can easily go back to where we were. And we had some rough moments where today I'm so surprised that I'm sitting here having this conversation with you because we didn't see the value in each other. We were two hurting people who came together. Mm-hmm. In the wrong ways and all the, our story is a terrible story, but God can make it beautiful. Again, He can take those ashes and create beauty out of them. And that's what He's done with our lives. So I want to encourage my listeners listening today. Maybe you're in that marriage and it's not the healthiest or the best, but it doesn't have to be that way. There is hope. There's always hope, isn't it? There's always hope.
Absolutely.
If there's a willing spirit. Can you tell us, before I close, I want you to tell us a little bit about your website, the name of your website, and where maybe you might recommend my listeners to go to where to start.
They can visit us at couplessynergy.com. They can also listen to our podcast. Our podcast is called Couples Synergy, Real Couples, Real Stories, Real Relationships. And you can listen to that anywhere that you get podcasts.
Especially the episodes of the yellow flags, the red flags, and the blue flag relationships.
And we did a green flag episode,
and a
too.
green flag. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I saw that, and I haven't listened to that yet. And it's piqued my interest. I'm like, what's a green flag? Well, I have listened to I like podcasts. I'm one of those that work from home, and I like the fact that I listen to other podcasts, and I love finding great things, good podcasts where you can find some people who have great knowledge. And what I love about what I've seen from your guys' podcast is it's really authentic. It's real. It doesn't feel, in no way do I see a fakeness in you guys. I love your desire to want to help other couples, and I like that you share the truth. And some of the things that I've listened to, I was like, wow, that's dead on with it. So I really want to encourage. We'll put links to your website and everything else for people to go look at and do that. Once again, Dr. Ray and Jean, I want to thank you for being on our podcast today. This was a great episode. I really feel like our listeners are going to be able to keep coming back to this, but also it gives us another avenue to be intentional and to move forward, and a new place, a new resource that you're providing for us. And I thank you for that and for what you guys had said. And before we close here today, is there anything you'd like to say before we close to our audience that might be in that marriage crisis right now?
One of the things when you were talking, I heard you were talking about the inner sanctum, and Relationship 101 is actually a blueprint to create your inner sanctum. And I don't think I saw it that way before you said that. So I would really encourage the relationship 101 are things that everyone should know. And there are 8 modules, and the first 6 would be a great thing for every couple before they got married.
Yeah,
Wow.
and
Game changer.
what I would want to say to couples out there is that, you don't have to just sit in pain. You don't just have to tolerate, a miserable experience. And you don't have to just feel alone as much as you do. There are ways to change that, right? We are supposed to go through difficult and challenging situations to learn something from it. And if we don't learn from it, then we just continue to wallow in it. And that is just not a pleasant experience. And it's not what we're designed to do. So there are resources out there. This podcast is a great resource. Right? I think it's really awesome. There are a lot of guys now that are looking to change things and not be the traditional stereotypical male in this world, right? And they are looking to evolve into something better and meet their partner halfway and become that partner that they want to be. So it's just really awesome.
Thank you. And for me, that one of the reasons why I did it was because you can't always go on your past experiences, because some of, like you said about the tribes, not all of those are healthy. And so sometimes we got to go find healthy ways to become a better version of ourselves. And we have to be intentional. We have to be, and I like some of the things you brought up. We have to be cautious too. We just don't go to just anybody. We need to research them. We need to look at them. We need to listen to them and make sure that what they're saying is sound and is good advice, because there is a lot of bad advice out there on the internet today. Mm-hmm. So be careful as you do it. But once again, thank you guys so much for being on our show. And to my audience out there, I just want to tell you, until next time, just keep being intentional. We'll talk to you later.